wake up to a dawn that whispers hope, chasing dreams with heart and scope. Unique, it guides us through the strife, building blocks of a better life. Money flows like rivers. Welcome to another episode of The Blueprint. The last 2 weeks, we focused on investment and insurance. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that everyone can benefit from: budgeting and saving. I'm so excited to be joined today by Ashley Thomas, a personal financial coach and the founder of Making Money Matter. Ashley helps people unpack their financial triggers, establish effective budgeting habits, and reach their financial goals. We're going to explore the steps you can take to build a solid financial foundation, understand the why behind your spending, and make saving something you're excited about. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let's get started.
Okay.
You've created an amazing business around helping people with personal finance. So I'd love to hear the story behind Making Money Matter. What motivated you to become a personal finance coach?
Yeah. So for me, I would go back to 2009. Even before that, I am terrible at math. Like math itself, algebra, geometry, all of that. I've taken remedial math my entire life. But money, I actually understand. So I used to
Mm.
be a tax preparer. And then once I stopped doing that, I started working in financial aid. And I was that person and still am that just enjoyed creating budgets for my friends. Um, I would like figure out what they owed in their taxes and like talk to them about their budget and like which credit card they should apply for.
Okay.
And fast forward from working in financial aid, I at the end of my financial aid career, I like had a little huddle in the middle of the aisle with my team. And I'm like, why aren't you guys participating in the 401k? We had a pension with this company. And my coworker was like, you should be doing this for real. And I have always wanted to help people around budgeting and all of that because it gives you the freedom to do with your money what you want.
Yes.
Uh, and so I got licensed as a stockbroker and I started working on the financial services side.
Mm.
And in 2015, I woke up one day and I like just had so much credit card debt. I
Mm.
totaled it up, it was like over $21,000. And I had nothing to show for it.
Wow.
And so I started doing overtime. I paid it off in under a year and a half. And from there, it was like, this is my opportunity to help people get their money together. And so,
Yes.
even though I had been doing budgeting and all of these things since 2009, I didn't officially start my business until 2017. And so, here we are, just like having conversations with people because I've been there, not having money, not
Yeah.
having control or freedom over your money.
I love that. And guys, as you can hear, even the person who has a good relationship with money can fall behind at times, right?
Absolutely.
So, but a lot of people, I'm sure they're like, yes, we've heard the word budget, but a lot of people still doesn't understand what budget is or even the concept of budgeting. How would you define that for them?
Yeah, so ironically enough, whenever I have conversations with people, I do ask them like what they think of when they hear the word budget. And
Yeah.
it's always like it's restrictive. It's telling you like what I can't do or how I can't spend my money.
Mhm.
And a budget is just a blueprint. It's a way that you are creating a plan for how you're going to spend your money. Another way you could put it is your monthly spending plan. It is what you're trying to do before you spend a dollar so you know in advance where you stand.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to just cook a recipe and not check if you have the ingredients. That's the same thing that you're doing with a budget. You're just making sure that you have the money that you need to do the things that you need to do. And I always tell people like if a budget feels restrictive or it feels like you can't do the things that you want to do, you're not budgeting for those things. Like this is your budget. You create it. And so if you want fun, if you want shopping, that's fine. Put it in your budget.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I like that. And I like the word blueprint because this podcast is all about the blueprint to their life. So, guys, remember, budgeting is the blueprint to your spending. All right.
Yes,
But I definitely think a lot of people do see budgeting as restrictive. And
absolutely.
for me, I do know that it's a mindset thing. So, what are some of the things that
Absolutely.
you say to them to shift their mindset to view budgeting as a positive tool than a limitation?
Yeah, so it's really about people defining what money means to them, right? Like we know what money is. We use it to purchase goods and services, but if you're not thinking about what money literally means to you, then
Hmm.
you have no idea why you're using it the way that you're using it. So I remember having a client who her parents were hoarders. And so for her, like she was not able to get out of that situation. And so she always viewed money from a scarcity mindset of like, I need to have it in case I have to get myself out of situations.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But like now I understand where you're coming from. And so part of our work together was me actually forcing her to spend money, right? Because people always
Mm,
think the problem is like, oh, you're not managing your money. And there are some people that are just so afraid of their
yeah.
money that they won't even spend it, right?
Right.
And so it goes to either side. And so, what does money mean to you? What does it represent? What are your earliest memories around money? These are the things that are going to give me insight into how you view money and how you respect or feel about it.
Yeah. I like that because I have never actually looked at it from that perspective. And I do
Hmm.
know quite a number of people who are hoarding money like that. They work
Yeah.
with money and they do absolutely nothing. They don't buy clothes, they don't go traveling, and that's not a good thing either. So
No,
so once people understand their finances, a lot of empowerment can basically happen from that is what you're saying. So
absolutely.
first of all, what is money triggers? And help us to understand a little bit around what are some of the money triggers and how people can identify those triggers.
Yeah, so I think like everyone's familiar with common ones like and so like here's the thing. I want to make sure like this is very clear because people think that like budgeting is very difficult and it's hard. We all
Hmm.
have calculators. Budgeting is just addition and subtraction. But
Okay.
what we are up against is our beliefs and our experiences. So someone who maybe does not have regulation over their emotions and they're not in touch with how they're feeling and binge eating is their go-to coping mechanism. They're not going to care about their budget. They're going to get the food that they want to go ahead and soothe and address those feelings.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, that is a trigger around their money. It's something that's causing them to disregard people who feel like, growing up, I was never able to get the clothes or the shoes that I want. And so, as an adult now, this is the same thing that's carrying forward. They feel like, oh, well, like a budget's not working. That's not the issue. There is a
Yeah.
wounded child inside of you that's like, I want this. And so,
Yeah.
you don't care about what your budget says, you're just addressing what you're feeling and it's manifesting through your money. And so until we actually dig deep and find out why you feel that way or
Mm.
what's causing you to react this way with your money, you're never going to be able to get it under control because it's not the primary focus.
Yes. So some people, because of lack while growing up, know that they have it, they just want to spend it. And some people are like, you know what? I see what happened to my mom and dad, the way that they spent money. So now I'm scared to spend it. So those are
Exactly.
okay. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And
Hmm.
I do hear like a lot of people who win like the lottery or find themselves in a position like a rapper or an actor
Yep.
who would get all that money and within no time
Be
it's
broke
gone.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Like there are unresolved issues that they have for who they are as a person, and your money is just a tool, right? Like if you got paid today
Mhm.
and you didn't have anything on direct deposit, you didn't swipe your card, your money's still going to be in your account.
Yeah.
You're the one that is controlling and telling your money what to do. And if it's not coming from a place of making sure that your needs are handled and
Mhm.
then branching out from there, it's just a cycle that you're repeating.
Okay. So once they recognize their trigger, because they're gonna have to look deep within and be like, hey, these are my trigger. How do they start to build that budget and start working towards a better financial situation?
So there are a couple of things that I work with my clients on. The first concept is edge money.
Okay.
And so what I want people to think about is it's all about a feeling, right? Like you have to be in touch with how you're feeling. And so the concept of edge money is we all have a number that if our bank account falls below, we're going to feel like we're on the edge. And
Mm,
some people, when they're on the edge, they just jump off and they don't care. This is where you see people start overdrafting or they spend every single dollar and then they're having to turn to other sources to get money. Other people, when they get to that edge, they're like, I can't go beyond this point. And so part of it is figuring out what your edge money is. And so it's simply a conversation. Let's say your paycheck is $2,000, your
okay.
expenses are $1,500. Well, if your bank account got to $100, how would you feel?
Yeah.
And that's the question. And people be like, I don't know, Ashley, that makes me a little nervous. Or they'll be like,
Right.
oh, I could make that work. So now we've established our floor. This is where we cannot go beyond. And
Yeah.
from there, we work backwards and figure out, okay, well, now that we know where you cannot go beyond, let's figure out what's happening in between there and figuring out what their priorities are. Because a lot of people, they know what they need to spend their money on, but they're not thinking about how those priorities actually align with their life and what they
Yeah.
say is important. And so now we start looking at what's priority, and that comes back to a feeling. How does it feel knowing that you can't get your nails done every single month? How does it feel knowing that you can't get your hair done every 2 weeks at the frequency that you expected? So it's coming back to that feeling.
Wow. It's all about the feeling. And that's why you mentioned overdraft. That's why a lot of people find themselves in overdraft because they are not budgeting and they're like, you know what, I need this anyways. So if it goes into
Why
over,
not?
why not? Like, I can't
Right.
handle that, right?
Yeah.
But then they find themselves paying way more than if
And
you don't have it,
fees.
why are you spending it? Yeah.
Yes. And so that becomes the question. So then it becomes what do you feel is going to happen if you don't make the purchase? Or it becomes why are these things not in your budget? If it's so much of a priority, why is it not in your budget? And so often, like the things that really trip people up that they're not checking on are things about convenience. So
Yeah.
eating out, people don't ever, whenever I ask about, how much are you spending on gas? Oh, I didn't even think about gas.
Right.
You need gas for your car,
Yes.
subscriptions, because they're so small, people aren't thinking about them because, oh, well, it's only $8.
Right.
But if $8 is going to be the thing that's going to put you into overdraft, it absolutely needs to be something considered.
So I think I'm people. I I am people because for me the way that I look at it is if I need it or if it's something that I want, I'm going to buy it. I'll figure it out
Hmm.
afterwards. I go to the
Mm.
market, they say, did you check the price for the bread? Did you compare it with the other bread? No, because this is the bread that I want. So I'm going to get that. But then if my budget had said, hey, I need to spend $500 on grocery this month, it will trigger me to start thinking about where can I save? What are some of the things that I don't need this month as opposed to just spending because I think I need it. So for those people who think like that, what advice can you give to us? Because I am one of those people.
Yeah, so that's one of the, I think it's a very common thing. People want what they want. And so
Yeah,
no one's telling you not to get what you want, but it's about, does it make sense right now?
yeah,
And so that's where thresholds come into play. So for me, no lie, I like a couple of years ago, I was that person where my friends would be like, "What? You went to Rainbow and bought a $9 sundress?" and would be clapping for me because
yeah.
I just wouldn't spend money. And so you have to figure out what is an amount that you know that you can spend that won't derail what you're doing. And that number is going to be different for everyone. If that number is, let's say, for example, $10, I know that I can spend $10 and it's not going to be an issue. Anything above that threshold is something that you need to evaluate. And
Mhm.
it's not about, not getting what you want, but is there a way that you can get it for a cheaper price? Is there a coupon that you can be taking advantage of? Are there BOGOs that you can be taking advantage of?
Yeah.
You should absolutely get what you want, but that doesn't mean that you can't be strategic about it by maybe shopping around. Like, I know this sounds exhausting for other people, but I start with Aldi when I go grocery shopping. Aldi's
Mm.
not going to have everything, but the
Yeah.
prices are really low. So if I can get like some produce there, if I can get my chicken there, um, some snacks, I'm going to start there. And then I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to, see what Walmart has. And then I might go to Kroger if I have coupons for that. And then I'm going to finish at Publix doing BOGOs for the things that I need.
Guys, you hear that? Listen, there are so many ways. Instead of just going to the nearby supermarket, the one that is in your community, think about where else can you go that may be a little bit more cost effective. Is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yes, and use those coupons. It's not a bad thing if you
Oh,
use
yes. Not at
like.
all. Yeah, like Kroger, like they often send coupons every single month to my address. And so it's always it's always like something that I buy. So like I typically get a coupon for free bread. So I know I'm gonna go to Kroger. And so
Mm,
what are other ways that you can be finding convenience that are going to reduce the cost? Like, yeah, you might want to get chicken, but like meat overall is very expensive now. Maybe you could get a rotisserie chicken and use that for your recipe.
yeah,
Now you're saving the time. You have the convenience in another way. And so you're not having to get all of that and then lose the time in terms of cooking it yourself. So, yeah, I might have paid $8 for a pack of chicken, but I could buy a whole rotisserie chicken from $5 from Kroger. And
yeah,
now I have back the time. And even though it's $3, like that's $3 towards that fancy bread that you want or
yeah.
towards the drink that you're not willing to compromise on.
Facts. Um,
Yeah,
so are you familiar with the Kenja G Show?
I have seen it a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of the women that come on the show, they want men who are making at least 100K for the year. Um, but based on what I'm hearing and learning, a man that is making 50K may be in a better position financially than one that is making 100K if that person that is making 100K doesn't know how to manage his money.
I, yes and no. I certainly see what you're saying. Like if he, but so like the thing is that if he's making 50K and he doesn't know how to manage his money, so it becomes a conversation of, can you afford your life?
Right.
And I don't think that's a conversation that a lot of people look at because with everything that we see on social media, all of these things out there, people are like, I want what I want. I see people having these things. And no one's asking the question of like, can they afford these things?
Mhm.
And like the value and the cost of a thing are two different things. And the
Yeah.
cost and the affordability of a thing are two different things. just because you have the money to purchase said thing does not mean that you can technically afford it.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I could pay a $2,000 rent. I absolutely have the income for that.
Yeah.
Could I afford that? That's drastically going to change the quality of my life. And so for me, that's not something that is truly affordable because it's going to impact my savings. It's going to impact my 401k contributions. I'm not going to be able to probably get my nails and my toes done. Like those are things that are priorities to me, and
Yeah.
that would take away from that. And so we
Okay.
have to evaluate that.
So that takes me to a point. So it's all about what is priority then, because
Facts.
you can have the money to do certain things, but what's priority to you? Do you want to live
Yes.
in a high-rise condo where you are seeing the entire city, or do you want to be in a position to take care of your nails, take care of yourself, those kind of things?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really comes down to it. So there's a quote that I have in my business email, and it's like, don't tell me the things that you value. Show me your spending, and I'll tell you the things that you value.
Hmm.
So what people say that they prioritize is not reflected in their spending. You can't say that you want to go on trips and you value being able to maybe, let's say, like get massages or being able to take a staycation every month. And like you're spending your money on Temu or Sheen, or you
Yeah.
have all of these afterpays set up because it's taking away from those things. And
Yeah.
people feel like, oh, because I can't do it right now, that I can't do it. No, it might mean that for where you are right now, you might need 2 to 3 months for you to be able to do that thing. And it's not going on credit. You can pay for it in cash and have it there. Because what often happens when we're talking about credit cards, people see the amount of money that's extended to them, and I can do it, I can afford it. But
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay that bill. Do you have the money to drop that? And so
Right.
it is such an amazing feeling when you can save money and you
Mm.
have to pay for something, and all you have to do is do a transfer and it's paid off, right?
Mm.
Like I'm going to Jersey for my cousin's baby shower. They're having their first baby. I waited on the ticket, completely my fault, $310. And like I have a travel savings account.
Yeah.
So I had that money in there. I bought my ticket. I went to my savings account, transferred the money out, it's paid. Now this is not a minimum payment of $50 or $25 that's on my credit card. And like
Mhm.
those small amounts that, oh, it's only $25. Okay, but if you've made 10 purchases that are only $25, it's $250.
Facts. Okay. That's a good point. I usually like to do the afterpay stuff because I feel like, all right, if the thing costs $300 and I can pay that over time, then I'm not seeing that big chunk of money coming out at once. I think again it's a mindset thing for me to look at the big amount coming out versus a
Yeah,
smaller amount.
I 100% agree. So then it becomes like for me, I 100% utilize Afterpay, but
Yeah.
it's going from my checking account. It's not going to a credit card. And
Ah,
so if you
okay.
are actually using the cash and you're building it into your budget, I don't think there's anything wrong with it because it's ultimately coming out of your account. But if it's going to a credit card where that's only going to be a couple of dollars added to your minimum payment, well,
Hmm.
then we're talking about a situation that is creating additional debt for us.
Yes, yes. When you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah.
so one of the things that I've seen over time is a person making 40K has a certain lifestyle that they're living, then they get promoted and they start making 70K, but they're
Yeah.
still in that same not able to save space because I think what happens is even though they're making 40K, they're living within their means, but then they get 70 and they're like, oh, I can go and change my car, I can change my apartment, and so they're still in that same predicament. What causes that?
Yeah, that goes back to those money traumas and triggers, right? Like I've been living like this for so long. I finally have breathing room. I can go ahead and do these things. And it's looking at the cost of the thing and not the affordability of a thing. Yes, you could get a new apartment, but how much of this new income that you have is that going to take away, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's lifestyle creep. It's looking at, well, now I have all of these possibilities. There's so much that I can do now because I have this extra money. Okay, but what then when you were making the 40K, what were your priorities? Was it, I just want to be able to save. I want to be able to pay my car off. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you've gotten away from those priorities because now I'm swimming in money, right? Like that's a
Mm.
huge increase. You've almost doubled your income. So that means that you can do pretty much double of what you've been doing if you
Yeah.
wanted to. And so people get caught into that because, man, I haven't been able to go to the concerts. I haven't
Yeah.
been able to buy the bags and the shoes that I want. Okay. And so it catches up with them because they haven't created a budget. They haven't thought about what does my lifestyle look like now? What's priority to me? And am I using my money to spend it in a way that reflects that?
Yeah. Wow. Again, the key word that I'm hearing here, mindset. It's all
Absolutely.
it's all in the head. Um, so setting financial goals can be exciting, but also overwhelming. How do you currently guide your clients to set realistic financial goals and stay motivated to achieve them?
Yeah, so I would say it's about setting the expectation. Even in my 9 to 5, when I'm doing webinars about personal finance and stuff like that, people are like, I want to have this amount of money, and then they want to do it by the end of the year. It took me 3 years to build my emergency savings fund. And
Mm,
so when you're talking about it takes time, we things are very expensive now. There are so many other financial priorities that we have. You have to be realistic about the amount of time that it's going to take you. And
yeah.
people often create a goal and then don't think about what that looks like on a per paycheck basis or think about it based on the time that they have. So when I'm talking about saving money, you can either figure out the amount of money that you want to save and think about like, oh, well, I want $5,000, but I only realistically have $100 a paycheck to set towards that goal.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means it might realistically take you about 2 years to get that money together
Yes.
versus saying, you know what, I need to save $5,000 in 6 months. Well, then now we know that we have an amount that we need to save every single month in order for us to meet that goal. People
Okay.
don't think about that. It's just, this is what I want, and that's it. There's no legwork behind it to see, is this actually reasonable for where I am in my life and what I want to achieve, or do I need to modify it and give myself more time? And
Mm,
like the sad part is that the time is going to pass anyway. And then
true.
people get frustrated and upset because it's taken me so long to reach this goal that those 2 years are going to go by anyway. Why
Mhm.
not just stay focused and put your head down and work towards it and automate that process so you're not getting caught up in, oh, there goes $100, there
Yeah.
goes $200, like I don't have this money. No, you're delaying what you want for a future time. So really being realistic and setting expectations around what that looks like and putting yourself in a position for success. Like, don't say that you want to meet this financial goal and then you're not changing your lifestyle to go ahead and make that a reality.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to do is like find out what people's defaults are. Like, what's the default? If you got paid on a Friday and you know that like all of your bills are handled out of your check, what goes then? And most people, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go out to eat. I'm gonna do these things. Okay, so we need to find a way to work around that. So maybe that means you need to purchase a gift card and reload it every pay period with money on it so that when you want that meal, It's on a gift card. It's not going to come out of your account. You've already set aside the money. So
Yeah.
it's like working around how you naturally show up so that you're not falling for those pitfalls. And it means you have to know yourself when you're setting these goals and being honest about that.
Yes. I want to go back to something that you mentioned, emergency savings fund.
Yes,
Unexpected expense can sometimes throw off a plan entirely. So you may be
yes.
saving, but then something just happened. How do you advise people to prepare for their financial setbacks without derailing their budget completely?
Yeah, so the first thing that I make my clients prioritize is start off with getting a $500 emergency fund.
Okay.
And so this is like, ideally it's $1,000. Most emergencies are going to be under $1,000. And so if
Mhm.
you have this little bucket that you can turn to, that's pretty much going to handle, oh, I need new tires. Oh, I like
Mm,
something came up, that'll handle that. Once you have that, then we start working on that 3, 6, or 12-month emergency fund. And even that number can be daunting, right? Like for most people, it's thousands of dollars. And so for me, it becomes if that seeing that number and knowing that that's your goal is priority and it seems overwhelming, break it up by expense. So
yeah,
you know that your cell phone, your utilities, your housing, your car note are probably going to be what's in your emergency fund when we're talking 3 to 6 months.
yeah,
Well, if that number, let's just say, for example, is $10,000, well, then maybe I need to prioritize saving just my money for my cell phone for 3 months. Oh, that's $300. Okay, well, then my goal is to save $300. Once I get that, my utilities run average, let's say 250 a month. That means that my goal is 750. Then I'm going to tackle the 750. And then I'm going to go to the next expense and
ah,
save whatever the amount of time is that I want to have that and start working towards that.
wow,
Your
okay,
yeah, your emergency fund, people feel like it's supposed to handle everything, but an emergency fund also reduces the impact of that emergency. If the bill was 2,000 and you have 1,000 to put towards it, that's absolutely going to make a difference.
yeah,
So don't be afraid to use the money. It is a constant cycle. Like I really try to make people remember the way life works. Like it's not a matter of if an emergency is going to happen. It's a matter of when.
when, wow. So growing up, I've always been told to ensure you have at least 6 months worth of salary in the
Mm-hmm.
event that you lose your job and you can't find another job within a good time frame. 6 months is a lot, depending on how much a person is working. But a person live according to how much they get paid as well. So I like the concept that you mentioned. Start focusing on a 3 months plan and save enough for your utility, then save enough for
Mm-hmm.
this, save enough for that. So that's a good way. But when you're coaching your clients, what are some of the things that you see that prevents them from saving up that 6 months worth of salary?
So the non-financial part of it is there's typically a lot of shame, right? When you're having conversations around this, people feel like there's a place that they should be at already. There are things that they should have already. And so when you start talking about saving this money up, like there's just a lot of shame that they're feeling around not having that together already. And so you kind of have to work around that, right? Like there are big emotions, there are big feelings that we have around money that people don't typically address.
Mm,
So it's that. When we're talking about just like literally what they're doing with their money, it's a lack of having a goal. Like they know that they want to save, but they're not thinking about making it a real goal and setting small ways that they can be reaching that goal. It could be that there is a lack of discipline or consistency. Like budgeting is a muscle that we have to build. You have to train yourself to build that discipline. And what I tell people often is like they start with like such unreasonable numbers. If you're
yeah.
someone where you find yourself, I'm constantly having to transfer the money that I put in my savings to my checking, you're saving too much. You
Yeah.
need to start with a lower number. And it's not so you feel like worse about it's going to take me longer to reach my goal, but it's about you being able to see what your savings is. Like, you know that the money for your mortgage is for you to have a home. Your
Mhm.
money in your savings is for you to be able to achieve something in the future. It has a purpose. That's not money that we can just use. It's
Yeah.
earmarked for something. And so we have to treat it that way.
Wow. So, what do you say to the people who think that they just don't have enough to save? What are the tips that you would give to them? I know you mentioned start small, but any other thing that you tell them or a simple strategy for building savings on any budget?
Um, Building savings on any budget, absolutely shop around. I, groceries, insurance, cell
Mm,
phone plans. Like, I was paying, so I pay for the line for me and my mom for our cell phones. We were paying about $125 before. It was AT&T. I switched to a prepaid plan. My bill dropped to $90.
yeah.
Like,
Wow.
that's savings right there. Even shopping your insurance is so important, but really just trying to find a way. Even so, my lease is coming to an end, and they sent me a renewal. And they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go up like $34." I was like, "Can y'all let me know why you're going up on my rent?" She's like, "Oh, the market rate is higher than what you're paying right now." I was like, "Well, can we do something else? Like, can you not go up that amount?" And she's like, "I'll talk to the property manager. They're only gonna go up $25." Like, okay, that doesn't seem like a lot. It's $120. I'll take the savings, but it's the things that we just automatically agree to without
Yeah.
pushing back and seeing if there's something that we can do. I highly recommend using gift cards. So for me, when I was in the process of paying down my credit card debt, I
Mhm.
had a set amount that I budgeted for gas and groceries. At this time, I was only shopping at Kroger because I could get my gas at the grocery store. And
Okay.
so I got a gift card every single pay period and loaded it with that money. And
Wow.
that's where I went for my gas and for my groceries. I'm automatically going to get the 10 cents off with Kroger, but then knowing that I can go ahead and have grocery money. And some months, maybe we eat a little more, and so I might have to come out of my pocket. Other months I won't eat as much. And that means in another month I might have an extra 25, $30 that I can rely on. So it's
Mm,
really, if there are things that you're going to do, places that you're going to go, and you find yourself in a position where you can't afford them like you need to,
yes.
get a gift card. And really don't be afraid to start small. I mean it. Like, if it's $5, if it's $10, because there are little ways that you're paying for convenience along the way that you feel
Yeah.
like you can't do it. Oh, but you might get that coffee, every
Mhm.
other day.
Yep.
Okay, skip it one time and put that money in savings. And like, it will gradually grow.
Yes, I like that. But what would you, because for people hearing about a gift card strategy, they would be like, but the gift card doesn't give me points. A lot of people rely on the points that they receive from their credit card. I'm people. So what do you say to
Yeah.
us?
So then that means that you have to be disciplined. So, like, for me, there are two things that I do. Like, I pay my bills the day before I get my paycheck.
Okay.
I've been doing this probably now at least 5 or 6 years. And
Okay.
so the whole point for me is I know how long it takes for my bills to get drafted from my account. My Georgia Power, it takes 2 business days for it to come from my account. So ideally, if I get paid on Wednesday, I'm going to pay my Georgia Power bill on Monday, knowing that it's going to come out on Wednesday. And what
Okay.
that does for me is when I get paid, there's no temptation, there's no, oh, well, I can use this money and then pay myself back. No, because everything has already been paid. When I wake up on payday, all of my bills have been drafted from my account already. And
Wow.
now I'm just sitting there waiting to see what I'm going to do with this other money. Like, that has probably been one of the best hacks that I did for myself because when you see that money come in on payday, you're like, oh, I could do all of this. You forget about bills, you don't think about them. But knowing that when I see my account on payday, it's really what I have left is
Wow.
really, really great. Changing due dates. People don't really think about, can I push a date back? Because there's a cycle that I find typically happens. Rent or your mortgage is due on the first of the month. People are cramming so much in for their last paycheck the month before that they
Mhm.
can't handle any of the expenses that are also due around the beginning of the month. And so now they're late on bills. You have that second check that comes in. They're trying to pay everything, but it's a cycle again. And so
Yeah.
changing due dates is really, really important. If you have credit cards, calling your credit card company, seeing if they can give you a lower interest rate, seeing if there are promotional interest rates. But if you're going to use your credit card, the goal is that you're only putting things on there that you can go ahead and pay. I don't ever wait until my due date to make payments. If I make a payment, like the ticket that I was telling you about, once it's posted, I'm making the payment.
Wow.
I might take the money from my checking account and move it to my savings so that I know the money that I need for my credit card bill is already out of my account, so I can't spend it. It's in my savings account. You can only do but so many transfers before they smack your hand at the bank. And so, like it puts me in a position where I'm not trying to go over my transfers because then I can't do anything.
Wow, this is interesting. So change in due date, again, that's something that I've never considered doing. I just
Hmm.
whatever due date they send the bill, that's the date that I'm gonna pay. But another important thing that I heard you said is you pay. So does that mean that you manually pay your bill, or do you have some?
Absolutely.
Wow,
I
you have a lot of work to do.
I don't believe in auto pay. I had one instance where a bill came out like twice.
Wow.
And after that, I was like, absolutely not. And it keeps me focused. Like a lot of people feel like it's extra work, but you're going to check the account anyway, right? Like you should be verifying that the payment was applied, that there isn't any extra money due. And
Mm,
so in that instance, like I pay all of my bills. The only one that does not get, that is on auto pay outside of like my Netflix, but I have it on my budget. So I know which paycheck it's coming out of
yeah.
is my rent. But every single pay period, I move half of my rent into my so I bank with PNC and I love them because they give you three account types when you sign up. You get your checking account, you get your savings account, and then they give you a reserve account. And the reserve gets interest like savings, but it doesn't have the restrictions in terms of transfers like savings.
Okay.
So that's my holding account. So my rent is sitting in my reserve account. And then once it's drafted, I'm just taking it from that reserve account and putting it into my checking to go ahead and cover that. So any of my expenses, I will move in there. My gas and my grocery money sits in my reserve account. So as I'm using it, I'm
Mm,
taking it out and putting it into my checking account when I have the credit card payment come out for that. So it's really staying on top of how much I'm spending. If you're not looking at what you're spending, that balance is going to surprise you every single time.
every single time. Wow. That is very insightful and interesting to hear because somebody told me before, even if your bills are being auto paid, go in and check it. But in my mind,
Absolutely.
I was like, it's been paid. Let it let they handle it. But I've never really thought about, oh, it may double take it or things like that. I will just go in my credit card statement and look to see if everything looks good. But recently, actually this week, I experienced
Hmm.
where my water bill just the value just changed, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what changed? And so I called
Hmm.
them, I'm like, send somebody out to come and investigate if there's a leak because this doesn't look right. So it's things like that that you get to catch early when you are actually
Yep.
going through your bills day by day. That's
Yeah, because
Mhm.
How would that have hurt you if it were automatically drafted and you weren't aware of it, right? It's that out of sight, out of mind. And you, especially when you want to make sure that you're maximizing your dollar, it can't be that way. Like if you got thousands of dollars coming in, 15, 20,000, and your expenses are only, let's say, two, $3,000, okay,
Mhm.
certainly, be my guest. But when you're talking about the average person that's living paycheck to paycheck, you cannot afford to take your eyes off of the money because
Yeah.
there's so many different places it can go if you're not paying attention.
Yes, that's that's good. So, are there any tools or apps that you recommend to make budgeting and tracking finance easier for people?
I'm old school. I use a checkbook register.
Okay.
Because yeah, so I use Excel. I write out my expenses for the year. I told you I'm like a little nerd, so sometimes I'll go back through, I'll look at my income. I will literally look at my income. I'll multiply what my rent was for the year. I'll multiply what my car payment was for the year. And I see like for a year what I spent. And you'll realize that when you say you can't afford something, there really are a lot of opportunities. When you look high level, you'll notice how much money that just kind of flows through your fingers because you're not
Mhm.
paying attention to it. So I don't personally use any apps because what are they going to tell me? They're going to tell me the same things that I can calculate on my own. And
Yeah.
so I have my income like the way my Excel is set up, it's my income for the paycheck. And then I have all of my expenses listed, everything. My afterpays are in there, my credit card payments, everything is in there. And then I see what is the amount I should have at the end of my paycheck. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hit that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I prioritize. Like I don't do well, excuse me, with apps because I know what I'm doing. I can see what I'm spending and see how it's going. And so
Okay.
for me, I need the basics.
Okay. So the key word here is I don't do well with apps because I know what I'm doing. So for a beginner who doesn't know, have absolutely no clue what they're doing, and for me, I use an app called Rocket Money.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but that's what I use. And sometimes I wonder to myself, am I doing the right thing? Because literally, in order for me to save and not having to monitor it that much, it's automatically done. I use this app, and the app is connected to my bank account and just takes money daily without my knowledge. Of course, I know exactly what is taken out because I can see it, but it takes the money daily and it puts it in another account that saves the money for me. Do you think that's a good approach or not?
So I think when you're trying to learn that discipline around it, it's beneficial. So there's an app that used to be similar to that. I don't know if it's still around, Digit. And I used to use
It,
Digit.
it's actually the same. They renamed.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I used
Hmm.
to use Digit back in the day. And then one time Digit took more money than I wanted to out of my checking account. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I
It
don't
does
have
not.
control over this. And
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So for me, when it comes to savings, I always recommend that people do an online only savings account because it's going to, if you have and you don't have the discipline and you're a beginner, if your savings account is linked to your checking account, automatically that's going to set you up for failure because it's right there. You can see it. And so for
Oh.
me, yeah, I've banked with Ally, which is my savings account. I banked with them since Ally was another bank called GMAC. So this is probably 2008, 2009.
Okay.
My mom is there, my cousins are there. And so I love online only bank accounts because there's no physical bank that you can go to get
Ah.
that money out. I don't have a debit card for this account. The only way that I can get the money out of my account is to do a transfer. And it's not going to be immediate, it's going to take time. And
Okay.
so for me, that built the discipline that I needed in order for me to do that. Utilize direct deposit. Like, have that money go in there. If you don't have the ability to do direct deposit with your job, then when you are scheduling transfers, I know with Ally, like you could say, I want this money to come out. It'll say like, if you do the transfer on the 27th, we're going to take the money out on the 26th.
Okay.
Okay. So if you know that, then plan your transfers to Ally or your savings account to automatically pull the money out on your paydays. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to pull this money out on this time, or set it up for your bank that your checking account is to automatically transfer to your savings account and know that that money is going to come out. So it's really around the timing thing. For me, I would time it where the money is withdrawn on the day that I get paid. And your bank should let you know like what the delivery window is so that you can take advantage of that. But it needs to be consistent, and it needs to be something that you're continuing to do. It needs to be, I think it needs to be a consistent amount just because it allows you to know how you can meet that goal, right? Like, if it's $100 coming out every month and you need $500, you know it's going to take you 5 months,
Yeah.
right? Versus it's $25 today, it's $2
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
I'm with you on that because one day it took $100, and I'm like,
Oh,
hold
wait a minute. Let's have a conversation. I wasn't gonna use none of that. Not
on.
none of that 100. Oh no, 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 no,
And then the
no.
interesting part of it is that I'm doing multiple different savings. I'm saving, oh, King's birthday is coming up, save towards that. Yannick's birthday
Hmm.
trip, save towards that. Emergency. So it's three different accounts that it's pulling money to save towards. And then you're taking $100 each for these three different things. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's a lot. So one of the things that I recommend in that instance, just for like what you have mentioned, is like savings should be a consistent year-round thing, right? Like, your son is going to have a birthday every single year. And if that's a priority for you, then you should be saving towards that every single year. That's something that should not stop happening for you. And if anything ever comes up for him where, man, I need a quick $200, $300, you have this account. So for me, that used to be Christmas. Christmas has been canceled for the last couple of years. That's
Mm,
okay. We might get back to it, but I had a Christmas account. I had a car savings account because I get synthetic oil changes. They're
mhm,
not cheap. And so I don't, that's not an expense that I want coming out of my checking account. I'd rather pull that from my car savings account. So
mm,
that comes from that. I have a travel account. So every single pay period, there's money going in towards that. Now, does that mean that it's the same amount? No, that amount actually fluctuates depending on what my budget allows. If I
yeah.
have a lot of things going on, well, then maybe I need to decrease that for a little bit and then I can bump it back up. But it's something that continues to happen whether I'm traveling a lot or not. Like, money has to be going in there so that when I am ready to do these things, it's already there and I can pull from. So, like, I pay my insurance every 6 months. That goes into my car account. And
Okay.
so I make sure that there's enough money going in to cover that so that when it's time for me to pay it, I could go ahead and pay it. And by prepaying it, I'm getting typically 10% off of what my bill is because of that prepayment. So it's really maintaining the things throughout the year so that I can easily do these things and not, oh, it's it's October, Christmas is 2 months away. Now I need to start shopping. You
Mm,
should have been saving money from the beginning of the year if that's a priority for you, so that as you see things, you can get them. When I was doing Christmas, I was saving year round and I would start my Christmas shopping in July because half of my money was already there. So when I saw things for my family and friends that I wanted to get, I could go ahead and get it.
that's good. I think you've mentioned a few things that will be a game changer for me and for the listeners. But you mentioned you have different accounts, the car account, the Christmas account, the vacation account, in the event that I'm saving for a trip for next year and next year comes and enough money is not there, the discipline part chips in. Do I still go on that trip by taking money from other accounts to do this? And how would that impact the overall budget?
Yeah, so you have to see if that feels like a priority enough for you to be able to do that. If I go on this trip, how will it set back other things?
Yeah,
I've certainly taken money from other accounts, and it's mostly because I look at what's the minimum that I want to maintain in this account. So, like
yeah.
for me, once my car savings account gets to $1,200, I stop there. I don't need to be saving more towards that goal.
Okay.
Now, once I use some of that money, now it's time for me to turn this back on and start maybe putting back $25 into that account every pay period so that I'm gradually building it up. And then if I
Yeah,
get money from my taxes, like I just go ahead and try to get me as close to that $1,200 as possible. So you have to think about like, is it that important that I'm willing to throw off these other things? And if
yeah.
it is, that's perfectly fine. Do
Okay.
it and adjust your savings goals so that you can get to what you need. Or sometimes if I feel like I have to take money from an account, then I also make it a priority to pay that money back. So if I take $400 from another account, I'm not just going to let that slide. I might need to set aside, if it's not $100 a month, then I'm doing $25. Well, then I'm going to do $25
Mm,
until that $400 is paid off. And so it's really understanding that all of these accounts have a purpose. And if you're not using them for that purpose, then you need to make yourself whole because you have that account for a reason. It's
yeah.
not, you don't just have it just to have it. You have it because you want to take trips, because you want to do something for your son's birthday. And so you have to honor that commitment that you made to yourself for that account.
Yeah. All right. Help me to understand. You mentioned the car account, you mentioned the Christmas account. Are these actual accounts that you're referring to, like bank accounts,
Yep.
or is it?
Yeah, so I'm a, I got bank accounts. So
Okay.
I have two accounts with Navy Federal. One is
Yeah.
my business account. The other one, I only have my car payment go into that account
Wow.
because my car loan is with Navy Federal.
Okay.
With Ally, I have my Christmas, my car. So that's like oil changes, emergencies. That's that account. I have my travel fund. I have my $1,000 emergency savings. And then I have my like 3 to 6 months, like that account is over there. And then I have my PNC checking account. This is the only checking account that I use. I
Okay.
have the reserve account, that's my holding account, and then I have my savings with PNC. And so all of these have purposes. And like some people, they don't like having all of those, which is why I love Ally because even within that savings account, you can create buckets.
Oh,
So I have my travel fund, but within my travel fund, I have money that's earmarked for a specific trip. I set aside eating money. So I give myself when I travel like $100 a day budget. So that
mm,
means I need to be setting aside the money for that. So when money gets direct deposited, you can tell it how to put money into each of those buckets. So you
wow.
have $200 come in. You could say, I want $50 to this bucket. I want $20 to this bucket, $100 to this bucket. And it does that as soon as you have any type of deposit. It breaks it up to the percentage that you save. And so for me, that's how I keep things organized. But I need these various savings accounts because it allows me to make sure that my priorities are being met. And I feel like people think like they can only have one account. You can
Yeah.
have as many accounts as you need to keep you focused.
Wow. That's interesting. Definitely a new perspective and a
Yeah,
game changer because I there's so much that you've said that I've never actually thought about. And I know
yeah.
I'm not the only one. When they listen to this podcast, they'll be like, "Wow, I need to start doing this." Is there
Yeah.
that I didn't ask that you think it's important for us to know?
So I say if you know that getting your money together um is a thing and like you just want to be better about your money overall, like first things first, I always recommend like going back over your expenses at least at minimum the last 3 months and see how much you've actually spent. Like
Mm,
people really don't go back to see how they're doing things. It's just like, I can't afford it. But you
yeah.
need to go back and see why you can't afford it. And so that means looking at your spending over the last 3 months. And it's not just your checking account, it's your credit cards, it's everything. If you use cash, you need to be getting receipts and finding out what you're spending it on. Really find out a baseline. I always recommend doing this by like writing it down. I know people love apps and all of those things, but when you actually have to write down that you've been spending $400 on eating out, you're gonna be like, I, I spent that 400. Like
Yeah.
that was once that was me. Okay, and it hits different than seeing it on a screen or seeing it on an app because there's a disconnect there. So really getting your statements, going back over a minimum of 3 months and looking at things really will allow you to see what your money is doing. And if you are ever in a position where it's like, oh well, based on this, like I'm supposed to have an extra $400 or $500,
Mhm.
where did that money go? Follow the trail until every dollar is accounted for. Um, if you're talking about like trying to start saving, one of the things I absolutely love is when you get to the end of a pay period, right before you get paid again, take
Mhm.
whatever's remaining in your account and put it into your savings.
Oh.
Start from zero because then that lets you see what you're actually doing with your money. And people will be surprised. You might be able to save up a lot of money that way just because like it's already sitting in your account. Start from zero every single pay period. I don't know if there's anything else. Don't put your credit cards in your account. I mean, in your wallet. If you know the credit card number, request a new credit card and don't put it in your wallet.
What?
Um, yeah, because like there is one credit card I know the number for. If I ever need anything, I know the CVV is always going to go through. If you know those numbers, that means that if something is tempting enough, if it's great enough, you're going to use it. Don't put yourself in that position. This is again, it's about working past your defaults, what you're automatically going to do for yourself. And it's a way that you show yourself that you love yourself because you already know what you're going to do and you're finding a way to move around
I
that.
think we need I think we need an episode in itself on credit card,
Oh
managing
yeah,
credit card.
yeah, that's a beast. That's a beast. I will say this. My mom, when I was in credit card debt, she was like, I thought that you saw, like how I struggled with money. I was a
Mm,
kid. I had all of the things that I wanted and most of the things that I needed. How would I know that you were struggling with money?
yeah.
And so like credit cards is a completely different beast. I would absolutely love to have a conversation around that. There's so many things. I know people have questions around like balance transfers and all
Mhm.
of these things and the things that come up around that. I would absolutely love to have a conversation on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely love to have you back on that because nobody in my family had credit cards. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning and I'm doing my thing and I'm like, yes, I'm managing this, but there is a lot that I'm doing that my friend would be like, no, so why didn't you just do balance transfer as opposed to consolidate debt with a loan, stuff like that. And so we would love to have you back.
Yeah, yeah. I would be happy to have that conversation. Like credit card debt really it happens so quickly and it takes so long to get out of it and you really
Yeah.
have to have a plan. And there are so many things that we can talk about around that. So happy to have that conversation. And I can even go through, like some of the things that I did when I got myself out of credit card debt.
Sounds good. All right, that takes us to the end of an amazing session. I learned a lot, but if you watch any of my podcasts, you know I'm not going to end unless I do some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for that?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So I think you mentioned this, but I'm going to ask again. What's your biggest money saving hack?
Biggest money saving hack is making it all automated. Like that is all direct deposit. All of it goes in there. And yeah, I don't need my hands on anything around the transfer.
All right. Morning coffee at home or from a cafe?
So I don't drink coffee. I do tea, and I do that at home. Yes.
Good, good. Because those coffee is like buying cigarettes. The money
It's
wrapped up.
expensive.
It is expensive. Credit card points. Do you love them or do you say leave them?
I I love them. So I do use a credit card, but I treat my points like savings. So I
Mm,
just let the money roll. So like if I'm doing a trip and like I'm making payments,
yeah.
I will purposely use that card and I'll leave the money on there and then I'll take that as like spending money. So I love
Mhm.
it, but I barely use my points because that is also like a rainy day fund that you can go to if you ever need it because it's
True.
just sitting there. It's free money.
That's good. What's your first financial lesson that you've learned?
Don't spend more than you make. Don't spend more than you're willing to pay. Yeah.
That's good. Don't spend more than you're willing to pay or that you make. That's good.
Yes.
What's your favorite way to treat yourself on a budget?
You know what? Like for me, I'm very simple. I enjoy a good night in and like lighting some candles
Hmm.
and doing some yoga. I think that's a really great exercise for everybody to find 3 ways that they like to treat themselves that cost less than that threshold. So if that number is $10, find 3 ways that you can treat yourself under that amount. But I'm very simple. I am perfectly fine with staying in. If I had to like do some type of spending in that equation, it would be
Hmm.
maybe like getting food, and I'm going to pick it up because the fees are too expensive for them to bring it to my house. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna pick it up.
it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. These Uber Eats and Grubhub. Um,
Listen.
one financial book everyone should read.
So there's this book, The Index Card, and it's a book that has all of these index cards on principles around personal finance. I checked it out from the library one time, and it's hands down amazing.
Okay, that's good. I write this down. Index card. All right. And then the last one I will ask preferred budgeting method: 50/30/20 rule or the zero-based budgeting.
I don't like either of them.
What?
I
Give
don't
us
like either of them.
the
So I don't like the zero-based budget because of the concept of edge money. I need to have money in my account and I don't like not having something there because life is going to happen. There will be
Mhm.
a time where you feel like I'm going to cook and you actually can't. And so knowing that I have money in my account that is not earmarked for anything because I know that everything else has been handled, my savings, my bills, everything, I am okay with having money in my account. 50,
Mm,
30, 20 doesn't necessarily work for me just based on how I manage my money because I, for the most part, try to keep my expenses under 50%. I think
mm,
the last time that I did the calculations, like my expenses were closer to like 40%. My
okay.
savings were over 20%, and then like the 10% I was like, okay, that's cool. I don't know that I'll spend that towards the things. So for me it didn't work. I don't look at it that way. I just want to make sure that my expenses are paid, and because
Mm,
I'm budgeting for the things that I like and I enjoy, it
yeah.
doesn't matter what happens because it's all accounted for in my budget anyway.
That's good and interesting. All right. Is there any money myth that you'd like to debunk?
Please stop believing that if you pay on your credit card twice, that it is going to raise your credit limit. It is absolutely not going to do that. It's, it's not going to happen. Please don't believe that.
Oh my goodness. This was great, Ashley. Thank you so much for
Yes,
sharing your
thank you for
wisdom.
having me, Annie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And making money feel a bit more manageable because
yes.
uh, I have my notebook right here. So I've been taking my own notes. Friends,
Yes.
remember that budgeting and saving aren't just about restrictions. So if you think that, oh, it's just restriction, I don't want to do it, I just want to spend my money, they're actually tools that empower you towards your goal. So with the right mindset, anyone can take charge of their finances. Actually, do you have any contact that you want to share for the listeners to reach out to you?
Sure. So you can email me makingmoneymatter@gmail.com. You can go to my website and enter a request on there, makingmoneymatter.org. Across social media, I am at Making Money Matter LLC. That's Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
All right, guys. So if you're struggling with money, make sure you reach out to her. But don't forget to subscribe to the Blueprint for more episodes like this, where we cover essential tools to transform your life one goal at a time. If you did not listen to the episodes around investment and insurance, I encourage you to go back to those. And we will be bringing back Ashley for the credit card conversation. And as always, let us know in the comments what you're doing to make budgeting and saving work for you. Thank you so much again, Ashley.
Thank you.
Wake up to a dawn that whispers hope, chasing dreams with heart and scope. Unique, it guides us through the strife, building blocks of a better life. Money flows like rivers wide, budget smart, keep your pride. Entrepreneurial spirit high, reach for stars, touch